Okay, so what we're going to do in this video is we're going to start refining this kind of top area above the mech. So I was kind of thinking that we'd go with these like lights. So I just found this LED light on the internet and I'm just kind of trying to fit it to approximately the right size. So just getting rid of the background here, just kind of adjusting it to get it to about the right proportions. So again, I'm going to bring down the curves just to kind of get rid of some of the highlights and the shadows, and desaturate it as well to kind of get it to fit with the model. And this will just kind of be our template. I'm just going to start painting over the sides and just kind of pulling in some information to see what I like and what I don't like about it. So these little bolts in the front were a little too much information for our overall kind of robot design. So I wanted to come back in and kind of pull out some of those little details because they're really not important to our overall design. And here what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get, again, that consistent lighting we keep talking about. Trying to figure out what we can do and how we can make it look consistent. So I wasn't really feeling too much the LEDs being so high frequency and so noisy. So I decided to kind of just overpaint it and kind of make it a little bit more of an old fluorescent bulb type look. And again here, just kind of painting in some details on the side, color picking some of the shadows that we have down on the lower leg and torso, just to keep a consistent kind of color palette. And now I just kind of merge the color with the LED light just so I can kind of start working in here and start cleaning things up. And I'd had this arm piece that had this little bit of extra black on it, so I just wanted to paint it out because it was getting in the way. So just cleaning up our edges, trying to make it look a little bit more clean, more precise. Just coming in here. I'm using the shift with the brush to be able to pull out those super clean lines with no opacity on it. So big soft brushes kind of give us these nice just soft shadows, which are really nice. It just kind of look like it's casting some shadow down in the lower section of the light from up above. And here I'm kind of just trying to play with a little bit of a highlight on the edge where maybe like these little lights are faceted in its original design. And again, a little bit of shadow around the outside. So I wasn't sure if I liked it being like completely open. So I just started playing with the idea of like some little brackets and kind of in front of the lights to kind of hold it in. We had that element kind of happening before in a couple places, like in the chest. So it's okay to play with and just see what works and what doesn't work in our designs. So I'm kind of rotating the smudge tool just to see if I can get anything more interesting could come out. So kind of had this idea of these like little fins kind of come out the sides just to kind of focus the light a little more. Maybe this is like a working bot and it needs to have like really focused light that kind of goes down on a particular project. We can think about stuff like that all the time when we're making things like this. And also just be aware that you can always be looking at reference for different things. See how different lights are set up, or on different mechanic lights or lights for cars. So here what I'm doing is I'm just erasing out some of that original silhouette we had. We don't really need it anymore, and it's just kind of getting in the way and confusing us. So I just kind of erase it out or use a layer mask to hide it temporarily. And all I'm going to do is I'm kind of just get this position in here roughly and see what we can come up with. So just trying to see if there's anything interesting. Maybe if they're at 45 instead of being straight, could be a little bit more interesting. And I wasn't really feeling it too much, but I'm just kind of playing with it. Just trying to see if there's any interesting angle I can kind of pull off. So maybe it's mounted with like this little shaft, and it can kind of be turned and manipulated in different ways. But ultimately, we keep looking back at the entire shape, just seeing like what's there. So just coming in here and working out different little details, seeing how we can get it to attach to the little shoulder rest pieces. So just kind of blackening it all in, just to get a better silhouette idea. I don't have to worry about it too much at this point. So I wasn't super happy with the perspective on it, so I just start manipulating it just to see what we can kind of come up with. Here again, just trying to bring out the form, just add back in some of that light that we had taken out, just make it look a little bit more consistent. Little mounting bracket. Trying to figure out how this thing's actually connected to the top of the mech arm. It's kind of just going with these two little pillar designs. And you can do anything you want to. Never be afraid to try ideas and see what comes up. You know, we could have attached this in several different ways, or just omitted it or changed it however we felt like it. So here I was trying to kind of warp it, just to give it a little bit more energy, make it feel a little more alive, just a little bit different. Something maybe I haven't seen before, where it was 100% straight and flat. This gives it a little bit of a curve, just a little bit more visually interesting, stands out. We don't always have to do it, but sometimes it's just nice. It gives another dimension to a piece that might not have originally been there. So coming in, just cleaning up some of these little areas, trying to make them read a little bit better, and then also trying to get a little grounding elements. Trying to think about how this is actually attached to the top of the mech. It's super important. It can get us a lot of information for free. Really sell it. So still just playing around with the perspective on this, trying to see what I can get, see what we can actually get to turn into. So pushing and pulling some different elements, being able to convert some stuff. So here, instead of having to just redraw it, I just cut it out and flipped it. It made it a little bit easier. I'll do the same with the second one. I'll just do this instead of redrawing it, because the perspective was off, so I can just kind of do that. And then when I kind of looked at this, I kind of thought that shape was interesting. So sometimes cutting pieces and just flipping them like that, because it's just kind of happy accidents. So instead of just being 100% flat, it's kind of interesting that we have these kind of like what looks like kind of cut holes inside the lights. So we can get away with a lot. And I actually really like this, so I started pushing it. And it was just the equivalent of a happy mistake. Don't be afraid to try some different stuff and just see what works. Having some negative space there really kind of made them not feel too heavy. And that really can go a long way, just kind of helping out the overall look and feel of the piece. And again here, just adding some highlights and little details and pieces that we can do to manipulate it. Again, trying to clean up the edges because it is machined. And I'm color picking a little bit from the chest just to try to get a consistent lighting and feel. So starting to add some highlights just to kind of bring it out. And then over here I just use the eraser tool and start cutting out similar kind of looking shape on these little circles that got cut out in an accident. So don't be afraid to experiment with just different designs and shapes when you're making anything like this. Just going to erase out some of the back stuff that was there originally. We don't need it anymore. And I'm just going to come in here and add some little darkness where we're going to catch a little bit of a shadow from the inside. And this will show us how thick these lights are, and they shouldn't be very thick. They should be kind of light up on his shoulders. And a little bit of a highlight just to kind of bring them out a little bit. Here I'm just naming some stuff, doing some cleanup work. Layer management is super important inside of Photoshop, so never forget to name your stuff. If you're working on a big project, your teammates will thank you a ton. So I was just trying to add something a little more interesting, a little organic kind of element. So here what I'm doing is I'm just adding some wires and trying to make a couple different patterns and a couple different looks just to see what we can kind of come up with. And just kind of painting them over with light gray. I put the black in first, kind of define my shadow, and then I'm going to just overpaint them and kind of just fill in the information over top. So we have that really thin little black line, but it's actually been painted over. And then I'll put my highlight in last and kind of pay attention and respect where the overlaps happen. So get these little wires in here and clean it up a little bit. It's a little jaggy. If you get too jagged, sometimes it's nice just to up-res your canvas resolution. You can get a little low at times. So here what I'm doing is I'm just adding a little bit of shadow in and around where the wires cross over each other. And again, that's going to give the sense that they're three-dimensional and exist inside the same scene. So always try to think about that and showing where pieces are touching with a little bit of shadow. Again here, kind of just pulling back in. I feel like I kind of went a little too far on the coloring. I need to bring back in some of that shadow and edge highlight on some of these little wiry pieces. Pulling it back a little bit, it was getting a little bit too bold. If it starts to do that, don't worry, just paint it out. I'll come in here, clean up some of this stuff, just get rid of some of these kind of jagged, sharp edges, make them feel a little bit more wiry. And they were a little too bright overall, so I just want to kind of bring them down and darken them, and then use levels on them just to kind of get them back in the right realm.